Hi everyone, it's Floyd again at Enginears. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really pleased to say today we're joined by Sahil Hanuane, CTO of 22. For those of you who don't know, 22 are a Parisian startup in computer vision software, using AI and computer vision techniques to automate vision and offer real-time detection and tracking for customers across industries such as retail, logistics, catering, and even smart cities. Today, we're going to be talking about a range of topics, including the power and diversity of computer vision technologies, major funding spearheading 22's growth in R&D, and the use of synthetic data in computer vision applications. So firstly, Sahel, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a real privilege to welcome you to the podcast and to share with our community more about you, 22, and the exciting journey that you're all on. So let's kick things off with an introduction to you. Give us a brief overview of you, your background, what you're doing today for 22, and in particular your remit as well.
Absolutely. So, welcome everybody, and thank you so much, Floyd, for the invitation and for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be with you. So, to give you a little bit about my background, so I am Suhail Hanoun. I am the Chief Technical Officer and the Chief Scientist Officer of 22 Group. So, 22 is, as you said, Floyd, is a Parisian startup. We've been in the market since 2015. And for my background, I've been in AI for quite some time, for nearly 15 years. So before it was cool, but it was for me. And actually, I'm a PhD in AI, robotics, and cognitive sciences. I've been working actually during my PhD on how we can create AI, so kind of a brain for robotic platforms and robotic arms, using what we know about the brain. And we have been doing this with neuroscientists actually to verify what we know about the brain and how we can create AI that are frugal, that don't need that much data for the learning and so on. So this is basically the focus of our developmental team actually during my PhD. Before that, I have done quite a few master's degrees. I have a master in engineering in automatics. I have another master in computer science and cognitive sciences, and another one in AI and robotics. So I have been dangling in the market actually.
You're a clever man.
Actually, I'm a greedy man. Actually, I don't let it go. And yeah, actually, it was cool. And I've been also working. I continued working after my PhD in our lab as a teacher at university and a researcher for a couple of years before joining 22.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that. And talk to me about today as a CTO and chief scientist, what that means for you in your remit within 22 and the kind of teams that you're overseeing as well.
Yeah. So at 22, I'm the global CTO, which means that I manage all the roadmaps around the product, starting from the R&D, all the way up to actually the production of the product and giving the product to the market. After that, I have a CTO dedicated to deployment and management of the partners that manages actually everything what happens on the field. So all the interaction with the hardware partners, with the deployment partners, and also the management of the client satisfaction. And yeah, 22, today we're around 80 people, half of which is technical and product team. So about 40 people that I manage. And we have multiple teams. We have an R&D team. We have a platform specific team. So everything regarding UI, UX, all the interfaces, all the software architectures, all the orchestrations, the hardware optimizations, the deployment methodology, because we will look into this, but we're a lot based on cloud-based solutions and technologies. And we have another team dedicated to the development of AI-based use cases. So when we want to create a use case that is specific to, let's say, supply chain for the detection of dangerous situations, this team will look into it. On the other hand, the R&D team will work on the data processes and the production of the global AI models and the global AI uh, platforms that we can use and middleware, and give them to this team actually to create the AI use cases.
Okay, understood. Appreciate that. That's great insight. And now for listeners who don't know, share a bit more around the story of 22. I mean, and I say how it started, the journey you've been on, because I think still very much a startup, but maybe an old startup, right? So founded in 2015, and I feel like the last few years have really taken off for you guys, right? So share that journey where you are today.
Yeah, as you said, actually, we're not really a startup. We're more of a scale up at that point. The story 22 is fascinating. The name actually comes from the name of actually a techno band and a label that the creators actually had when they were 15. They created actually this brand at the time. And they were creating some music actually, and they had quite a bit of success at the time. So they had the brand and so on. And then they switched actually careers. It was William Eldin and Damien Mulem actually that created 22 and the 22 band. And
they got some music videos floating around on YouTube.
Actually, they had one that is well known in France.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, during the early 2000s, that was quite huge. It was quite funny one. So maybe
we'll share that. We'll share that in the comments as well
for sure.
To see.
That's shocking, actually, when I heard it. And 22 actually was their lucky number. That's the idea behind it. Actually, they were projecting the 22nd century when they were young, but they were living at the 22nd of the street. They always meet at 10 p.m., which is 22 hour in France. And actually it was a recurring number in their lives. So this is how it started. And then actually, William had quite a bit of success with a few enterprises. Actually, he was one of the founders of Coyote, which is a radar detector actually in France.
Okay.
Damien was working at Apple. And in 2014, actually, during the Williams wedding, Damien actually came to him and told him, what would you think if we recreated our brand and worked really on new technologies as we imagined when we were kids? And this is the idea. And in 2015, actually, 22 started around virtual reality and augmented reality technology. And when I joined in 2016, actually, I was the first person working on AI and cognitive sciences. The idea was to create an R&D lab and then a business unit, which we did. And then actually we created actually those two business units for quite a few years. We were kind of the proof of concept and MVP factory in France regarding computer vision based solutions, both in human vision, so virtual reality, and artificial vision, so AI and computer vision. So we had quite a bit of success actually with a lot of clients. This is why we address so many sectors, because in the 4 or 5 years where we conducted proof of concepts and MVPs, we addressed retail applications, smart city application, industrial and supply chain applications. We had also quite a bit on the food aspects and the security aspects. So we developed quite an IP, but not stable enough for a product. But we were actually exploring the market in order to identify what is the best aspects of the market for the go-to-market. What are the opportunities? What are the markets that are quick to buy AI? Because in 2016 and 2017, AI was really new in the market. So clients were not that savvy, not really including AI in their strategy. So we had quite of work actually guiding the clients in this understanding. And then afterward, in 2019, we had a couple of years of experience, and we started to think about what product will 22 propose to the market. At the time, actually, there were a few startups, quite a few startups actually working on computer vision and AI, but we were like a couple working on real hardcore real-time analysis on like camera networks and things like that. Coming from a robotic background with a team that I hired mainly composed of engineering researchers, really guys that have been working on real-time application, frugal algorithms, and so on. We had quite an IP around real-time analysis and also AI based for real time. So everything regarding tracking, re-identification algorithms, both using facial recognition and non-biometric approaches. So we had quite a bit of IP, but we needed to test it, broad it, and stabilize it on a specific product. And this is when the idea of 22 Core came to light, actually. We thought about it, thinking of what will the next step of computer vision will be on the market. And the idea was we need to address networks of cameras that are already in place, a high level of cameras already installed, and a high level of algorithms on each camera. So very massive deployments. So of course, a platform that needs to be very easy to update, quite volatile, so it can switch configuration quite easily, and also with quite a bit of optimization regarding the hardware usage.
Right.
And this is how we created 22 Core, which is a platform based on cloud technologies, so Kubernetes. We created an orchestrator that optimizes on all the algorithms and all the hardware that is used in order to be very efficient and get quite a boost. And we have also a patent that is pending. It should be released actually in a few months, like
Fingers
3-4
crossed.
months. Yeah, it's been already 18 months. So
yeah. Wow, okay, long process, right?
Yeah, dedicated actually to how the orchestration, the optimization work in the platform.
Okay.
And yeah, so we released the V1, the first version of 22 Core. So 22 Smart City, as the name says, for smart city applications, in just after COVID.
Okay, good timing.
Actually, yeah, but
there wasn't much to track.
Actually, it's because of COVID, because at the time, the only sector parts that were still working are the cities. Everybody else actually was off. So we specialized smart city, and then now we have solutions for smart city, smart infrastructures like stadiums, train stations, bus stations, airports. So everything we got in safety, security, applications, but also we have other aspects for industry and supply chain. So for both process evaluation and quality assessment in industry. And we have also declined the 22 Core platform for food applications, mainly fast food applications, for both the management of the drive and also the as a manager augmentation tool. So use cases where the retail is scanned and we set up and give information to the manager to optimize how the deployment of the team is used, what are the resources, what are the tasks that needs to be prioritized in the fast food, and so on.
Okay, great. And I think that, and let's give a bit more context as well on the industries 22 is serving, because I think you're finding your expertise to be most in demand and most powerful, and I think it would be great to share in unison some context on specific use cases or applications that these individual sectors benefit from.
Sure.
And I think you briefly touched on those, but I think it would be good to share kind of where do you see in terms of 22 Core where do you see the biggest value and actually the biggest breakthroughs happening kind of
Yeah.
sector-wise?
Well, for smart city and smart infrastructure applications, one of the main use cases is everything regarding the management of people, which means queue management, counting, traffic management, both for vehicles and people. So really how you can manage your space and how you can make it safe for people and for goods. So
Okay.
this is used broadly for cities, infrastructures, retail, stadiums, touristic applications, touristic zones. Um, so this one is really volatile, very efficient because it uses the cameras that are already in place, and this is the most used use cases.
Okay.
Other than that, we have everything regarding parcel tracking and parcel analysis. So penetration of zones, securing zones, both from people and also from vehicles and different kind of vehicles. You have many use cases where there's some zones actually that are accessible to vehicles, but not motorcycles or bicycles or things like that. That can be a safety issue in an industry or in a city. So all of those applications can be addressed with our platform. And we have also many other use cases regarding the safety and security, like PPE, so protection equipment detection and evaluations, where we can find if somebody is not equipped correctly. This is a safety issue. It's also an insurance issue. We have also use cases regarding the detection of fire, so which can be a real hazard where we can work on that. And we have other applications that are more energy oriented, like we work on the management of the lights in cities, where we can find and detect vehicles, people to optimize the usage actually of energy in city. We can have up to 50% of optimization actually in the energy
Wow.
cost in cities. Yeah, in France, because it's
Sure.
really not that efficient. We have other applications that, like I said, actually in fast food and catering, like the digital twin for the manager. So really attending tables, attending the deliverable. So uh, is every item needed in the delivery actually in the delivery? Clients actually tend to be really disappointed when something is missing.
Sure.
And it happens a lot of time. It happens something like 10% of the time. So it's
Wow.
really, it's really something that we need to address. And we propose actually algorithms that are oriented in for those use cases. And other than that, for smart city applications, we have traffic analysis and management. So we tend to connect also with the lights, with traffic lights, to automatically get them a bit more smart than what they are today. It's quite frustrating when you're alone at a traffic light. There's nobody else, and you can't go. But also we have a few use cases about the optimization of costs for cities, like
Hmm.
the prevention of illegal dumpings. This is something that happens quite a bit, as you might have seen in the news in Paris, for example, but also in other cities in France. So this is something that we offer, where cities can have an overview that the different zones where illegal dumping happened, but also alerts, real-time alerts about when it happens. And
Okay.
because of the platform, we can have both statistical analysis and real-time alerting.
Okay.
So the depending on what team needs the product, what is the goal afterwards, we can have either dashboard with statistical analysis for decision making and more like directory boards or things like that. But we have also real-time alerts that can put directly in the systems that exist in cities, what we call video managing systems, VMS, where the alerts go directly connected to those software, and the operators can interact and act in the minute to correct or avoid actually some dangerous situations also.
Understood. No, I appreciate that. And I think this is where 22 and even computer vision, broadly speaking, fascinates me, because I think the versatility of what it can do when it's used in the right way, I think is endless. And I'm sure if we sat to discuss all the applications and things that computer vision would do, we'll be here until next week. So we won't go through all of them, but it's good to know kind of where you're seeing big demand. And obviously that will be largely driven by your customer base as it grows and what their individual demand is, right? Something that I'm intrigued about is, of course, the systems and the solutions that you're building are essentially plugged into existing, like you said, existing video systems, camera systems of your clients.
Exactly.
And with that in mind, in terms of a business model, you're focused on floating license sales, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about what that means, and how that benefits your customers and the flexibility it can give your customers compared to maybe standardized software licensing.
Yeah, that's a really good question, as it was actually one of the biggest selling points actually for our business team at the beginning. Floating licenses is basically the idea that when a client have one license, it's not camera dependent. So he basically can switch which camera he's using AI, because when a client has, let's say, a network of 100 cameras, each and every camera was put for one or two use cases at the time when they imagined the coverage. But the use cases or the need is usually quite periodic. So it's needed like at night or during the day or during hot hours or things like that. And the idea is, okay, a client that has 1,000 camera, we don't necessarily need to sell him 1,000 licenses. The idea is for them to get like 100 of them, and they can switch cameras depending on their needs. And we added to this a kind of a programming calendar. So the client and the user can beforehand configure everything and set up everything they need in the calendar. So which detection goes on which camera, between which times, and on the calendar aspect also. That idea allows the client to optimize on what are the use cases that they might need on specific cameras. And it also correlates with the kind of licenses that we have, because clients have the opportunity to either buy licenses that basically allow them to use any algorithm they want on specific camera and stack absolutely any number they want on one camera. So basically a client consumes one license for a camera and they can have like 10 analyses in parallel. That's a possibility. That's the first kind of license, the most costly, of course. But there's other licenses possible for 4 detections in parallel or for only one by camera. So depending on the client, some need one specific analysis by camera and they won't go further. Some might need 2 or 3, and others might have actually a lot of detections on each and every camera. And in that way, the last kind of license is more interesting. And that floating licenses allow them actually to optimize on their network.
Right, understood. And when it comes to, when I think about how quickly AI is advancing these days and the new things, it's almost like every day when I wake up, there's a new blog post or a news article about something new that's come up in the world of AI. When we think about your R&D and naturally as your product or your capabilities expand, is that a case with customers that have existing licenses? Is it as simple as, okay, we're going to do a new version where it's updated, its capabilities are updated, or is there a bit more of a detailed process to go through to then re-roll out those systems to your customers?
Yeah, no, actually, when we provide a new class or a new use case, it's already included in the licenses. So
Nice.
every paying client regarding the licenses actually will be updated. We have a cycle of 2 releases per year, with 2 release candidates in between that are dedicated for beta testing and for specific clients, which are more like partners than clients, with whom we would like to test like a function or something. So it gives us the opportunity to test a few things and deploy on a couple of clients. But for the 2 releases, it's broadly distributed, and every still paying client will have the update. The updates are done via our integrators and the client's integrators, actually, that we certify, and they have the full capacity to update, reinstall, and also back and import all the configurations of the clients, the previous detections and the configurations. So they have all the tools needed for the updates. And the updates are systematically included for a specific sector. So a client that buys 22 core for smart cities will have all the updates for the smart city, of course. So there's a bit of segmentation, let's say, for some clients that might be interested in 2 kind of declinations of the 22 core, and for those actually they will have the both updates.
Sure. Okay, understood. And I guess that's the beauty of the setup that you have and what you've worked towards in terms of a cloud-based, almost plug-in solution for your customers, where it seems from a product perspective, from a capability perspective, right through to even how your customer is buying your product, there's complete flexibility and transparency throughout, which I think is quite unique, especially when you see many customers that maybe offer similar solutions. Will quite often have to juggle with the hardware as well, which is quite a complicated thing, especially when it comes to upgrading them, right? It becomes even more costly, as you'll know. Now, I wanted to touch a bit more on your Genepix tool, which is your data synthesis tool, right? So it's a really interesting subject around data synthesis, because I understand that 22 is moving to rely hugely on synthetic data.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about that shift and what exactly that allows you to do. And maybe for our audience that doesn't understand, maybe a quick introduction as to what's the difference between real data versus synthetic.
Right. So yeah, Genepix is basically generative pixels, which is an in-house tool developed by 22 for quite a bit of time. I think it started in 2019. And synthetic data is basically the data that is created artificially using 3D assets, 2D assets, and images that we might have acquired either virtually or from real life. So the basic idea is AI algorithms and models need data to be learned, actually, and at least for supervised learning based algorithms, which is basically like 80% what we do today, and 100% of the quick advances that the clients might need quickly for quick wins. And for that, actually, we were working on our products and projects, and of course, the data is the pain point. It's a pain point for regarding the timing, because we need to collect it, which is not our focus. We need to clear it, to derush it. We need to annotate, so label it, which we don't do. Actually, we have a partner that helps us for this. And then after that, we need to evaluate the quality of the data, do the learning, and then assess if the models are good enough, if we need additional data, and so on. So the cycle was, and still is today, really long and really problematic because it's super costly, takes a lot of time. It takes 3 months and a few tens of thousands of euros to run actually a new use case, which is quite costly when you have so many use cases as we do, and especially when you want to scale on the number of use cases, the number of classes that you want to interact with, and also the the number of contexts on which we want to evaluate our product. Because for multiple sectors, we need to evaluate on multiple contexts. It's not necessarily one context fits everybody. It doesn't work like that, or at least it's too costly to work like that for at the moment. It's better to focus actually on smart city applications, retail and catering applications, industry and supply applications. The contexts are more stable actually and more statistically coherent that way. And for that, actually, we were thinking about how we can generate or at least augment the data that we have with a tool. So with computing power and with assets that we can either create. 22 actually comes from a 3D company. We have done virtual reality and augmented reality in the past. So today we are only AI-based software company, but we have this expertise, or we can only buy them, not necessarily create them. So the idea was to create a tool that allow us to take our data sets that are already labeled and be able to augment them. So add either new objects or completely new classes. So completely new object that we didn't have beforehand. And all of this actually is really important because AI needs, or a machine learning application needs to take up from the data collection. There's a lot of risks associated other than the money aspect and the time aspect. There's private data, so sensitive data aspects that need to be assessed and addressed. When you collect data, especially for smart city and smart infrastructure use cases like we do, we have data that it is quite sensitive. So we work a lot on the GDPR aspects actually to be quite safe and be sure about our processes to limit the risks. And for that, actually, synthetic data is perfect because it gives us actually the ability to create new data that is richer, that can be addressed to limit the biases that we introduce both in the data and in the models. And also it allows us actually to create new use cases for new classes or new use cases that we didn't have beforehand, completely synthetically. So really with data that has been created from scratch, with either 2D augmented data sets that we have, or with 3D views. So like in a video game, and we place cameras and we make the situations actually run virtually and simulated, and we collect the data sets. And the data sets allow us both for the learning and for the evaluation, because both are needed and both are lacking. Sure. So this is really a velocity aspect. And yeah, 22 is trying to go full house actually on synthetic data. We have quite a bit of R&D that is working on it. And we have been for quite a few years already.
Sure. And I think it's a really interesting topic because I think, like you say, on one hand, you need the data in order for your systems to learn like a human would. But it's also not easy to do that from a real world perspective because you'd end up rolling out products that don't serve the customer's need, right? Because it hasn't quite learned enough. So I think certainly it seems around the kind of virtual setting, this kind of simulations and so on in terms of how to train data, I feel is becoming a bit more common, but certainly not adopted by everyone, right?
Right.
And I think you've touched on some of the pros, which are quite obvious in terms of the data sets and the learning that your systems can glean from the use of synthetic data. But give us some other pros and cons to kind of the use of synthetic data compared to real world.
Yeah, so the pros are quite obvious. So it's the time. So you have quite more velocity. You have versatility. So you can create as many use cases as you want or you can imagine. So this is a huge aspect, and also data protection aspects. You don't have to take into consideration anything regarding private data because you generated everything from scratch. So all of this is super cool. the problem with the synthetic data is mainly regarding the consumption hardware, because you need actually a lot of computing power to generate everything. But the main focus actually is how difficult it is. The problem with synthetic data is usually when we use only synthetic data to create an AI, it will be an AI super efficient for synthetic words and doesn't work in the real world. This is the problem, actually. The synthetic data usually we lack our understanding on all the details that we need to add in order for the data to be real world representative. So we create data that is more sterile, more clean. So really not what you can have from camera networks, for example, with everything that lacks in quality and dynamic in the cameras and so on. So in that way, we create biases in the data and so in the models that are inherent because we use a lot of synthetic data. And most of the expertise that we are developing, other than the software that allow us to create the synthetic data, is the process that needs to be followed in order for the data to be relevant and can be used actually efficiently. So all of this actually is quite of knowledge to acquire inside an organization. Today, actually, there's quite of research in synthetic data, but there's no consensus. So if you switch use cases or you switch models, the principles don't work and don't switch. So, for example, in self-driving cars, there's a lot of expertise that have been done by Tesla and other self-driving car companies working on AI, where they did what we are doing now a few years back for synthetic data for driving cars, because you can't run cars off cliffs to test your product. It doesn't work like that. You need to simulate it, but you need to simulate
expensive,
it,
right?
Yeah, and very dangerous. And there's
you also can't figure out if the car's going to run someone over in real life to test it, can you? So again,
it doesn't work like that. You can't test like that. And for that, actually, they did super cool work actually for self-driving cars AIs. And what we are trying to do is to take basically and redo the work they did for cars for cameras that are in cars, and do everything for all the other cameras of the world, and see what are the processes that we need to follow in order to generate data that can be used. What are the principles, the invariants, and what are the shortcuts? Because you can start by having an idea about we will do most of the work. So we will take images that are really like the real world and recreate them in 3D and add the noises and add everything. Yeah, okay, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. So what is the advantage to doing augmented data when you are spending as much time as just collecting and labeling? Doesn't work like that. So you need also to identify the shortcuts. So it goes through, maybe we don't need background that are realistic. Maybe background that are rich in specific visual signature can be a shortcut. Maybe we don't need all the data or a lot of data. Maybe we need to generate only the data that is lacking in our models. So we need to identify which is the data that is lacking in our model. So there's a lot of strategies and a lot of analysis regarding the learning process for the AI models to be introduced actually in the data generation process.
Sure, understood. And it's really insightful and interesting, because I think the use of synthetic data to the real world, like you say, I think the pros, like we said before, are quite obvious. And I think I have no doubt that more and more businesses will shift to the use of synthetic data almost exclusively, like you're on a mission to do. Do you think that when it comes to maybe why it's not hugely widespread yet, do you think that part of that problem is as we described, when you're using synthetic data and simulating, you naturally will make it more clean. There's less variables. There's less potential. I guess I would compare it with if you read a textbook about driving a car and the laws of the road. It was very different to when you get in the car for the first time, right? And you
Exactly.
see things that you never thought you'd see, and so. Do you think that kind of obstacle of translating that clean data into the real world is the main reason why it's not wider spread, or do you think there's other factors as well?
That's the main reason for me. But there are other factors that are a little bit less important, but are super important. Mainly to create process for synthetic data, it's not the same expertise as to create AI models. So you need
Okay.
expertise that you don't necessarily have in an AI company at the beginning. You need 3D, you need real-time analysis. So this is why NVIDIA is doing this. This is why other big GAFAM companies are doing this, because they have and they know that it is super important for their clients and end users, but also that their client and their users most definitely would lack some kind of expertise. So they provide this as a tool, as a possible product, but they create the shortcut and the usability in the market. But yeah, actually creating data that is like more clean is the main focus to address in order to enrich how we can use and automatically use synthetic data. It's the main focus and has been for quite some time, still is today.
Sure. And I know you mentioned before that 22 is on a mission to move to kind of fully synthetic data model, right?
Right.
And do you think you're far away from that? I think you've got some really good expertise by the sounds of it, the background in VR and AR and
Yeah.
so on. Do you think that's in the fairly kind of near future that you'll be able to pivot to that?
We hope to be able to do so. It depends what we are imagining. We hope to be 100% synthetic in a few years, like between 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
But we are already 100% synthetic data for a few use cases. So
Okay,
it
fine.
depends actually what we mean by 100% synthetic data. But for example, actually for data that we don't have, we can't acquire for classes that are difficult, or uh, we don't have enough time actually to do so, and we don't need necessarily a high precision or accuracy needed for the use case for this specific object. We already today can do so actually with fully synthetic data. We also
Okay.
do so. We also work with synthetic data for bias correction. We do it actually a bit with real data, but we're full synthetic actually in every release. Every release have been actually reimagined. The data set have been reimagined and addressed with synthetic data to be more dedicated and more stable for the use case of the smart city or the supply chain or the catering aspects. So we work with synthetic data nearly 100% for specific goals, but for the real 100%, it will take a few years.
Sure, and I'm sure in a few years, with how things are progressing in AI, that the goalposts will change, and there'll be something new that you can do with
Absolutely.
synthetic data and how you can teach it. So it's probably going to be a never-ending goal of, even when you think you're there, it's actually probably only 99%, and there's still that
Yeah,
1% that's always
that's the beauty.
free
Actually,
to. Yeah.
you're absolutely right, because there's no way to have a model, an AI model that is 100% accurate. There's no way of
Because not even a human is 100% accurate, right?
not even close.
Well,
Most of the time, we're way worse than AI models that are specialized in specific use case. But yeah, even AI models actually will, for a few use cases, we will need the 99.999, and even this will be actually a goal important enough to invest and work on theoretical aspect, technical aspects to address those. So yeah,
sure.
it's a non-stopping goal, I think, until we switch paradigm. until we
Sure.
switch from AI to something else. And then the problem won't exist anymore. But we're not there yet. We don't know which theoretical paradigm will be used as the next stage in computer science.
Sure. And I think it's a conversation for maybe a different day, but I remember having a conversation not long ago with someone who said they spend a lot of work working with more commercial, less technical folk within their business. And the question was around kind of the emergence of so many different technologies in AI that can do really good things for many different reasons. A big challenge is actually understanding how far do you go with that, because every business can utilize those technologies in a different way. Some technologies, albeit really powerful, might not be necessary. So I think it's a really important topic for any business to think about. It's around actually what does their customer need and what are they trying to achieve. Like you said, when you think about shifting to 100% synthetic data, actually what does that mean? Because
Exactly.
it depends if you're referring to specific use cases, specific customer demand. So I think it's an interesting topic, and one for the likes of you as a CTO that has that headache to think about
Yeah,
is what technologies do we start to implement, right? Um,
absolutely.
it's always one thing that just sprung to my mind as well is when it comes to, because essentially you're plug and play in many ways to your customers' existing video
Right.
systems. Is it limited in terms? I can imagine some of the video systems that you work with, that in terms of pixel quality or camera quality, probably aren't the best.
Yeah.
Certainly not 4K. That must be really challenging as well, because is it limited if the image is really pixelated? Maybe it's a much older system. Are you able to kind of clean? Is your software able to clean that image up to do its job, or do you say to the customer, "Hey, you need to upgrade your camera"?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, it was a subject like yesterday. We had a client like this.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, computer vision is computer vision. You need vision to be compute. So if you don't have enough signal and you have more noise than signal, the AI actually models won't be able to be as accurate or accurate at all. So
Sure.
this is a problem. And for the correction aspect, it depends. There are a few things that we can and we are developing algorithms to compensate. So everything regarding the color aspect, the color switch from camera to camera, or the reduction of noises, of things like that, denoising. Those actually we have pre-processing algorithms that we have worked and we are still working on, because we can always create more advanced algorithms to address those. But there are a few use cases actually where there's basically nothing to do. We have clients that have been using cameras that have been put on the market like 20 years ago. So those actually are okay. Either it works or there's nothing to do. The dynamic is too poor. There's not even a VGA pixel resolution. So either the camera has a good angle and can do the use case, or we need to change the camera. There's nothing to do. You can augment the camera, or we might create. Actually, we can use generative AI actually to highlight the resolution, but we might create a bias in the videos that way. So it's not something that we want to go at the moment. It's not the direction that we want to go toward at the moment. But there are other use cases also that we can't work with. Basically, some clients don't set up the focus of the cameras.
Okay.
And yeah, so in that cases, just set up the camera correctly, please, and we will have way more accuracy. And yeah, so there are a few that we can address, but some quality problems actually make us stop because there's just not enough signals on noise ratio that is high enough for us to be able to have an accuracy that is usable.
Sure, understood. So I think the message is, if you want to use AI or computer vision techniques in your imaging systems, make sure you've got good cameras.
Yeah, we don't need that high of a resolution or that high quality.
Not
We
asking
need
for
a
much.
baseline. So
Just not a
please,
blob.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's good stuff. So I think before we wrap up, I did want to take the opportunity to congratulate 22 first of all for your recent round of funding, Series
Thank
A,
you.
where you raised 22 million euros,
Yeah,
which I think is super impressive. And I think especially for the kind of the Paris region, from a French scale up, startup, whatever you want to call yourself, point of view, I think it's really good news for the community. And I'm sure that there's many other entrepreneurs, startups that will take huge inspiration from what you've leveraged as well. And I think it says a lot about what you're onto, right? You've spent, I think it's really easy to forget that actually you've been around since 2015, really,
yeah,
from proof of concept. So it's taken many years to get to a point where actually you're really confident and ready to launch and invest globally in the product. So it's going to be really cool to kind of see this journey pan out and how that scaling works for you. But let's talk a bit on that. So the funding came in March this year, I believe. I know
yeah,
that
absolutely.
from speaking with you, you're still going through the motions of kind of deciding where that investment needs to go and how to kind of structurally make the right decisions with that as well. But where is the priority when it comes to investment? What's your vision in terms of 22's growth in the next, say, 12, 24 months, and what are your plans?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Actually, we were delighted to announce the 22 million fundraising. Of course, it was set up. We raised a bit more actually, and we we made it limited to get the 22.
Nice.
But yeah,
I was going to ask you if that was you got offered more, but you refused it because it wasn't in
yeah,
line with your
absolutely.
cultural values, right?
Yeah. Because actually, we aimed at 22. We had a bit more, and we were okay. Let's make it work. Let's make our number the number in our fundraising. It's a good sign, actually. Hopefully, it will be a lucky sign. But yeah, actually, it was a really good also signal to, as you said, the French AI market, because 22 is still a deep tech company. So the market is not mature. We're looking into it. We're looking into go to markets. We're trying also to create as you've seen with our business strategies and floating licenses and all the business model we provide. Actually, it has been a work in progress, and we're trying to find the best fit with the market to lock it completely. So all of this needs funding, actually, and this is a really good sign that have been exposed to the French market after the COVID epidemic and the Ukraine crisis, also that have been a real block in funding, especially in France. Put a real stop on fundings. But that was actually a really good sign. And there's a few other extremely good signs from other startups and scale-ups that have been presenting their fundraising for the last few months, which is super encouraging for the AI market and AI startups in France. And our goal is basically, as a deep tech company that is looking to fit with the market, is technology and sales. Those are the main markets, the main objectives. And the goal is to reinforce the technical team and the product team, of course. We have multiple open positions starting from internships, but we have full stack web developers that we are looking for. We have DevOps. We have, of course, AI engineers and machine learning engineers positions, both in R&D and in engineering, that we are looking for on multiple levels of expertise. We are also looking for product managers, quality assessment, also positions that are open in the technical team, and also positions that are dedicated to the deployment aspect. So field technical members that certify the partners and deploy our product and help to diagnose our product with our partners. We have a few positions for those. So all of this, the idea is to have about 15 to 20 people in the next 18 months regarding the technical and product team. And
Nice.
yeah, and the other big chunk of positions is for the sales, because 22 is already available at the international. We have the sales team in Spain. We have an integrator in Switzerland, in Germany, a representative in Germany. We have also a salesperson in the Middle East. We have a scale up that is going up with one of our integrators in the US at the moment, where
Okay.
we are deploying multiple actually tests in the next few weeks, and if everything goes correctly, we will be deploying up to 400 fast foods in the next 5 years,
Wow,
3
okay.
years, in the next 3 years. So we have a lot of scale up projects that are running, and we are looking into the sales teams that will be representing 22 in the US, maybe in the UK, maybe in the Middle East, to reinforce the team, that the person that is already there. So we are thinking and creating this strategy. As you said, it's not already fully set, but it's work in progress. And actually, we are looking for every position possible, because we're also actually open to opportunities. If we have a good salesperson that have expertise in a specific zone and it fits with our interest, actually, we might be advancing our roadmap, because we have the best person or the good profile to address this geographic zone. And we also are reinforcing the French team mainly, actually. And regarding the sales, we have maybe 10 to 15 people in the next 18 to 24 months.
Just in the sales as well.
Yeah.
So there's potentially, from what you've said, kind of 20 to 30 new hires, which is a solid. I think how many staff have you got now? Just shy of 300,
80.
is it? Yeah. Okay, fine. So I think it's a huge percentage increase.
Yeah.
For sure, in terms of growth. And I think the message to anyone watching who certainly comes from the AI industry, in terms of whether you're a computer vision engineer, machine learning engineer, as you said, web developer, software engineer, not just from the vision industry, the AI industry. I think all of those other disciplines are going to be really well needed, and I'm sure you can join the journey and learn a thing or two. So we'll include the link to the career site for sure. And I think, again, to commercial folk that are watching, if you're a salesperson and you want to be involved in this really exciting journey with a business that's certainly scaling internationally now, you're not going to be known as the French company for much longer. I think it's going to be the global 22, right?
I hope so. And all the details actually are on our Welcome to the Jungle page. So you can search 22 group, and we'll add, as you said, actually in the link.
Yeah, sure. I'll add everything. I'll add some links in terms of below, in terms of the career site, some more information about 22. Hopefully we can get some YouTube clips of the founders band.
Of course.
See if we can embarrass them a little, although it sounds like it was really successful, so they'll probably be quite proud by that.
Yeah.
All right. So I think, as always, a massive thank you, Sahel, for joining us.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to be with you.
No, honestly, it's my pleasure. And for everyone tuning in, a thank you as well. Please do like, share, comment. And if you're someone who has any of the skills and experience that you feel Sahel has mentioned and could be valuable to 22, not just in France, but internationally, I think the message is clear that they're growing. They're very open to the individuals with different skill sets, different locations. So please do check their career site, the Welcome to the Jungle. But thanks again, Sahel. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Enginears is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Enginears.io. It's no_. We've also got a website, which is enginears.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. we're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.